Let's talk about tough subjects tonight and how to tackle them.
People go, oh, they're crazy, they're outcast. Let's just run away from that.
Like changing the face of mental illness with the help of a patient who wants to tell his story.
I felt it important to share this unique perspective.
Changing how we look at public education through the invitation of a teacher. Maybe we could put an end to that whole crowd size debate, or at least figure out why we should actually care about it. Or we can alter the way you talk politics with a recommendation from our psychologist. And maybe, just maybe, we can learn a lesson about frustration from the politician who lost an argument and his courtside seat. I'm Steve Steger, in for Kyle Clark. This is Next. This was the first full business day of Donald Trump's presidency. It was also Press Secretary Sean Spicer's first day taking questions in the briefing room. 2 days after blasting the media in a statement upset at the reporting on the size of Trump's Inauguration Day audience. Politics guy Brandon Rinneman looks at what we can learn from the first Q&A in the West Wing.
Before we dive into the details, let's be clear, history doesn't judge a president on crowd size or TV ratings. That stuff doesn't actually affect your life. What can affect a lot of lives is how the White House talks to us. And that's how we got into this topic today.
Is it your intention to always tell the truth from that podium, and will you pledge never to knowingly say something that is not factual?
It is. It's an honor to do this, and yes, I believe that we have to be honest with the American people. I think sometimes we can disagree with the facts. There are certain things that we may not fully understand when we come out, but our intention is never to lie to you, Jonathan.
To recap what prompted that question, on Saturday, Sean Spicer described President Trump's inauguration by saying, quote, "This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period, both in person and around the globe." Now that wording, especially the word both, led many to believe the White House claimed both a record audience watching from home and a record crowd in person. We got a little clarification on that score today.
You're not saying, and you weren't saying on Saturday, that it was the largest inaugural crowd in person.
I am not. I am saying that it was the total largest audience.
TV ratings were about 10 million viewers short of a record, but Spicer said more than that watched online, and that's where it gets tricky to prove, because unlike TV ratings, there's no central tracking system for online viewers. CNN, for instance, did put out online numbers, reporting almost 17 million live starts on Inauguration Day. Trouble is, that counts people who watched only a single second of it. There's not a clean apples-to-apples way to compare viewership from past years to today, when you've got more people watching on their phones and tablets. Aside from that hubbub, the press briefing appeared relatively normal and orderly today. Spicer made it clear that Trump was not going to do everything he promised to do on day one today, because it would be too much at once, he said. But he did say we can expect more soon. We'll be watching. For Next, I'm Brandon Rinneman.
On his first full working day, President Trump did sign 3 executive orders enacting a federal hiring freeze, backing out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, and freezing foreign aid money to groups that support abortion. Well, we have heard from many of you after our story Friday about an end-stage COPD patient who can't find a doctor willing to prescribe her end-of-life medication, even with our state's new law. I checked in with her husband this afternoon, still no luck. So we made a few more calls to try to figure out why doctors are so skeptical. Here's a quick refresher. Herb is Kathy's husband. Kathy has end-stage COPD and says she wants medication to end her life. To do that, the couple must find 2 doctors to verify that her condition is terminal and that she's in the proper mental state to make a decision on her own. Herb says they've talked to doctors. No one has said no specifically. They just say they don't understand enough of the law and they wouldn't be comfortable prescribing the medicine. So we called the Colorado Medical Society today, an association of doctors in Colorado. The organization is sending out materials to doctors to tell them about the law. But remember, doctors have the right to opt out. Delta County's Memorial Hospital even wrote to the local paper there explaining the hospital won't prescribe the meds. Doctors may be skeptical early on because the state's Board of Health only approved emergency rules for the laws last week, and emergency rules are only temporary. The board has 4 months to approve more permanent rules. Now, back when this was on the ballot, the Medical Society asked docs about it. Just more than 50% said they supported it. About 30% said they were strongly opposed to it, so you can assume those doctors would opt out. The folks helping integration of the new law say training doctors tends to be a process that can actually take a while. Well, this week may have been another difficult one. If you talked about politics with friends or family members, arguments get heated quickly no matter what side your political beliefs fall on, especially if the arguments are on social media. So today we asked 9 News psychologist Dr. Max Wachtel to talk the whole thing through with us.
Is it possible to have a civil conversation about politics anymore?
Of course it is. We can have a civil conversation about anything if we choose to. Now the caveat there is, is it possible to have a civil conversation about politics on Facebook? And the answer there, I think, is probably no.
What is it about Facebook that's different than doing it face to face?
We're so mean to each other on Facebook. I know you're like one of the worst offenders. You're awful.
Do it all the time. Yeah, I really take it out on you.
Yeah, no, it's it's just depersonalized enough that we feel like we can make these strong declarations and we are right, and we're almost looking for a fight. That's kind of what it feels like Facebook has devolved into.
What about defriending? And we see a lot of people doing this lately. Defriending people that they don't agree with.
Yeah, lots of people are doing that. They're defriending folks who they don't agree with.
Is that good for me?
Well, yes and no. It can be. If you're defriending somebody because they are just pummeling you with post after post after post, either that you don't agree with or maybe sometimes that you do agree with, but you're just getting sick of it and it's actually making your life worse. Just get rid of that person on Facebook. You can be nice to them in real life, but you don't have to put up with that online. Now, if somebody is really trying to engage in a conversation with you and you're the one who has the problem and you can't stop bothering them about it, and then you defriend them, that says something about you.
Some advice, maybe take it. A middle school teacher at Denver Public Schools is clearly passionate about education. So last week, after watching President Trump's nomination for Secretary of Education at her confirmation hearing, she wrote a letter. It was not supposed to be political. It was not supposed to be partisan. It's simply an invitation for Betsy DeVos to meet her students.
Dear Mrs. DeVos, I welcome you into my classroom. I welcome you to explore with me the individual beautiful minds I teach. After all, it is the most valuable thing we have in this world. She is Trump's nominee for the Secretary of Education. I think that it's a extremely precious and important job. I didn't see the passion and devotion for education that I see in myself and my coworkers. I welcome you to learn how 8 hours every day creates open-minded risk takers who hold each other accountable, because that's what principled citizens do. My full intention was to share with my community as a public school teacher the difference that public education makes in my students' lives that I get to see. So Mrs. DeVos, I welcome you into my public school classroom. I welcome you to reflect.
The Denver Public Library has a new program that's not only benefiting library goers, but also those who are working there. Peer navigators have been hired to help library patrons, especially those who are struggling to get back to a better place. They talked about their mission through the lens of photojournalist Tom Cole.
There's a lot of help needed. We have a shortage in housing. The library is a safe place for people to go. We have a new program. This grant has allowed us to hire 3 part-time peer navigators.
Where are you staying right now?
And these are individuals with lived experience, so people who are in recovery from any thing such as homelessness, mental health issues, substance use issues, and in their recovery process have chosen to work with people who are having similar challenges.
Getting around is difficult for me.
I know a lot of things, but I have not lived on the streets. I do not have those experiences.
Have you been able to get an ID?
And so for someone to talk to someone who's had those experiences brings everything to a more relational level.
I have experienced homelessness a little, in that I was couch surfing and I spent some time living in somebody's business. I do live with a substance use disorder and a mental health diagnosis.
I have a lot of appointments. That's why I didn't work out at that treatment facility.
I think that they're more comfortable with one of the navigators because they know that they've walked the walk.
I think I understand more about where they are, usually where they are right now, and I know that I'm a good example of where you can go.
That grant for the library came through a program through the U.S. Department of Justice. The navigators are trained through the Colorado Mental Wellness Network, which oversees that whole program.
I thought my life was over.
Mental illness, through the words of someone who struggles with it every day. He shares his story with us to change the conversation. He was the head of CDOT, a state senator, now the mayor of Greeley. This guy is used to an argument, just not one that ends with his removal from the floor.
Security guys came over and said that he'd requested that I be removed.
And I think she has her outdoor activities mixed up. Next. The most Colorado thing we saw today was powder so deep that you need a snorkel to head down the mountain. Mackenzie Hanna did some serious shredding in the back bowls this weekend in Vail. Apparently that's a cool thing. I don't ski, so that sounds pretty cool. She strapped a snorkel to her helmet under the goggles so she didn't breathe in the fresh powder. It worked, a rather simple invention to help her fly down the mountain. And that is the most Colorado thing we saw today.
Steve, that is so cool. And she may need flippers because along with the snorkel, you may need more gear with the snow and wind that we have coming into the high country tonight. Another storm on the way. We start off with sunshine, then we have the cloud cover, and now we're bracing for a little snow in Denver after a day with highs above average in the mid 50s. Well, guess what? We're headed into the 30s tomorrow, and we're going to stay there all week long. Moisture is not holding together as it comes off the foothills toward the east. And as the main low pressure area lifts northeast, that's where the heaviest snow will fall. But winter storm warnings are out for 10 to 20 inches of snow, especially in our southern mountains. Lower elevations, a few flurries tonight, a few more tomorrow, and just a cold north wind that will blow tomorrow afternoon. So jacket weather to be sure. Less than a half an inch of accumulation expected. Tonight, dry, cloudy, and cold. Our low at 24. Tomorrow, temperatures topping out in the low 30s at lunchtime, mid 30s in the afternoon. A trend that will continue all week long until next weekend. Then with sunshine, we'll see a nice jump in temperature back to the low 40s both Saturday and Sunday. Steve, this would be a fun peak to conquer, huh?
I don't think I could do it. I don't think I could do it, Kathy.
Sure you could.
We'll have to see. Thanks. The mayor of Greeley has spent his life around government and politics, so he knows a lot about the art of argument. But in his career, this has never happened.
Greeley's mayor just got kicked out of the building. Are you freaking kidding me?
Got ejected. He got ejected from the men's basketball game at UNC Saturday for arguing with the ref. You see him down in the corner there. He, like many other fans there, did not think the previous play was a foul. He was a bit more vocal than the other fans. Norton, of course, was the former head of CDOT, also a state senator, and shortly after the ref gave him the stink eye, the security guard came up and told him the ref wanted him gone.
Well, I was being the typical obnoxious Bear fan and was yelling at the referee because I thought they made a terrible call. And, of course, I have courtside seats, so I was standing up next to my seats there, and the referee seemed to be a little sensitive. I said, go look at the tape. Check out the recording. That's all I said. No choice words. I never swore a bit, and I never called him any names. When I was in the Senate, I could stand at the podium and argue. Of course, I was president of the Senate, so I could make other people sit down. So I wasn't quite used to this routine.
He does say, despite all of that, he understands the ref is the most important job in the game. After security chatted with him in the hall, they realized he'd calmed down, let him back in, let him watch the rest of the game from higher up in the stands, though. But you gotta love his passion. Matt wants to talk about something that might make you feel uncomfortable. That might be the only way you'll learn to drop the stigma he feels every day. You probably shouldn't tell someone they'll never be able to do something ever again. They'll just prove you wrong. Next. We wanted to give a shout out to the president of Denver City Council, Albus Brooks. He hit a big milestone over the weekend. Check something off the bucket list. He went snowboarding this weekend at Vail with his wife. But that's not why it's a big deal. It is a big deal because his doctors told him he would never snowboard again after he had cancer. But he proved his doctor wrong. Way to go, Albus.
Yeah, baby!
Love that. Getting a good scream from the wife there, too. She's loving it as well. Well, we got an interesting email this week. Matt wrote, "The media has a powerful and important job to inspire and help change the face of mental illness." We couldn't agree more, and Matt agreed to share even more with us.
There's no stigma going to the doctor for cold or flu or whatever, right? But to go to a doctor and say, hey, something's wrong with my head is, you come from a good family. You've got, at the time I was married, right? And all of a sudden I come back with this diagnosis of bipolar, and I thought my life was over. And so for the first couple months, it was like, I couldn't even believe that was my diagnosis. I couldn't fathom how awful that was.
When Matt first came to me, he was definitely in a lot of pain at that time and a lot of chaos going on in his life, and he was really struggling. So some suffering.
In the United States, it's like just kind of man up, if you will, that saying, deal with it yourself. That's kind of what we're taught to do. And that's the worst thing you can do with a mental illness or anything, right? Take away mental illness, right? And talk about someone who's just struggling, right? Just with a job loss or whatever it is, they're struggling in their head, right? And if they don't talk about it, they don't have a place to go, then it builds up and it becomes something far greater and far more depressing or far more difficult to deal with. And then, like you said, everybody has something, right? Some of us just have more of something.
Everybody is inspired by the, amputee that skis and, the diabetic who was on Ninja Warrior last week, and you're really rooting for those people. But when it's something you can see and it's obvious, you're inspired by people that overcome things. But this is all in the brain, all this illness and all this stuff that's going on in somebody's inner life, and so you can't see it.
I can't even hold a marriage together because of this, right? That's what the thought process is. And you come to Carrie and you go, Carrie, I don't know that I want to make it, right? It's just that low. And for her, and it's not just pointing out all the good things, it's for somebody who actually sat there in that low time, right? Who sat there and said, hey, it's going to be okay.
There's so many people that, feel unwell in terms of feeling too high or too extreme or low or even anxious. People have a lot of panic. Just to know there's so many people, and I hope more and more people like Matt will come out and start talking about it, and then they'll be at work one day and they're like, oh, did you see that story? I have that too, or I suffer from depression. And pretty soon you're around all these other people that are saying, I have this, and then you don't feel so alone.
Our thanks to Matt for sharing that. Your feedback and a well-deserved honor for one of our friends. Next. Our friend Anastasia Bolton got a big award this weekend. She was honored by the American Legion of Colorado for her commentary that aired right here on Next. You might remember that commentary. Anastasia shared her perspective about the power to vote, about the importance of casting a vote as a naturalized citizen, and about what it means for her to be heard. The American Legion gave her a plaque that reads, "You will make a difference now and in the future. You are truly a proud American." And you can watch her whole commentary again under this story on the Next Facebook page. Getting a little feedback about that tonight. Penny says, that was such a moving editorial Anastasia did. I know I was in tears watching it. Check it out again on the Next Facebook page. And Jess says, Mom, Brandon Ritteman is wearing jeans tonight. Must be casual Monday. Kyle Clark is gone. Now I'm wearing a tie. It's not casual Monday. Maybe it'll be casual next time.